Hello, friends. My name is Sharita Bagby, former conformist turned profit rebel, working with high achieving men, layering in purpose, passion, and profit into their current business structures. And today, I want to take a minute to just talk about desire. I've been posting about it online for probably about 3 solid weeks now, and there's this space where I have to sit back and go, is the mathin' for them? Is it making sense? I deal with a very professional crowd, and I really, really, really want to bring in a space of desire into professionalism. Now, before we get started, bear with me. I do have my trusty glass of Chardonnay, and we are going to just take a light little sip here and there. I'm debating, do we want to make this like a regular happy hour occurrence, or what do we want to do? You tell me what you think. Because sometimes having a nice little, as my nana used to say, a sippy sippy, having a nice little sippy sippy is just a relaxed way to meet and connect. But let's talk about desire, like the different aspects of desire. And I want to talk about desire from maybe a different perspective. Like there is that when a lot of times when I initially hear the word, or in the past when I would hear the word desire, you think of okay, and maybe it's just me, maybe I'm telling on myself. When I hear desire, desirous, it has this very sensual, even sexual note to it, right? Like, I desire this. Like most people don't walk around saying, I desire, a cup of coffee. They're like, I just want a cup of coffee. But when we say desire, it has a very sensual feel and flow to it. And that is actually something that I want to bring into business. That reminds me, a couple years back, I did a 5-part series on bringing sexual energy into business. And I think I need to revisit that. Maybe redo that series. That was a good series. Anyway, I got sidetracked. I really want to talk about desire in this space of what it brings, not only to you in your whole complete self, not only, just in the bedroom, but also in the boardroom as well. There are a lot of things. Bear with me because I got like 4 screens going on. So I did actually make some notes for myself this go round, because I know I told you I was going to do a little bit more free flowing, but I was like, don't forget this. So there's a space a lot of times where when I am working with my alpha CEOs, one of the things that they'll say is like they feel more connected to people online or in the office than they feel like with those who are in their real lives. And the thing that I really want to impart, if that is something you've ever felt, is a lot of times when that happens, it's because there is a space of desire that is permeating within you, but it's being completely unfulfilled. And when I'm talking about desire in this aspect, I'm talking about there's a space of intimacy that is being neglected. A lot of times with the men that I work with, they're so focused during the day, and they're focused on what needs to get done, what is happening next, what are the potential pitfalls or obstacles or what have you. Like even in my own household, my husband, when he's got a big project coming up, like it's not uncommon for him to wake up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and his mind is just spinning. He's focused on, let me make sure I have everything in order. Let me make sure I have my crew set up. Let me make sure that the contact is going to be there and everything is on time and the equipment that we need, blah, 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 blah. And okay, and if this goes wrong, then I'm prepared for that. And I've got this, and this. And that mindset, it comes in at home. It comes into your personal relationships, whether it be with your wife, spouse, partner, whatever, children, even friend group. And so a lot of times there's a space where I find that desire is missing. It's because it's so focused on the doingness that he misses out on the beingness. And so when you allow yourself to actually tap into desire in whatever way it comes in, now we're not always talking about acting on desire, because sometimes we need to slow down and not be impulsive on desires, right? Like, right? Right? You know what I'm saying? Right? 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 Okay. But there's this space where desire and allowing yourself to feel desire, if you allow that to permeate into who you are and what you're doing in a very I'm gonna say a strategic way, okay? Because again, I don't know if you've ever heard me say this, but a girl loves strategy. I have one foot very deeply rooted in logic and being highly analytical, but I have another foot deeply rooted in the abstract side of life, right? And being very conceptual. So I'm merging the two together, right, for the sake of this conversation. But there is a space when you allow desire to come in and you allow yourself to feel and you acknowledge and experience that level of desire, it can create intimacy within those close relationships that sometimes feel a little blocked off, right? I know as a wife, okay, and I used to take it personal. I do not anymore, but I know as a wife, when my husband is in that mode, like to let him be in that mode. And it's not my job to come in and question him and to ask him all the things. Like until that project is done at the end of the day, like I'm here to support. What I do appreciate in my marriage, and that's something that we both have learned, is like when we come home, I know by default my husband's gonna have a few hours on the computer when he gets home, but once he's off the computer, he's home, right? He's home. Like he's focused on what's going on at home. He's having conversation with me. We can have that intimate connection. Now, for me, as someone who works from home, I've had to learn how to shut that off because I'm sometimes here in my space. And when I am in my mode, I am in my mode, and I will take that mode into the living room, into the kitchen, into the bedroom. And I've had to learn how to step out of that, to shut it down and allow myself to feel, to move into the beingness of it. And so a lot of times when we allow ourselves to feel desire, we can really tap into that more intimate side of our personal relationships. Like sometimes it's easier to connect to colleagues in the office, or even sometimes scrolling on social media and seeing, an influencer or somebody making a funny video. It at times can feel easier to connect to them because in that space there's no deep level of intimacy, and intimacy can be a double-edged sword sometimes, right? And again, I'm not just talking about in the bedroom. I'm talking about just in general, where true intimacy oftentimes, I don't want to say requires, because, for somebody who's very free flowing, requires sounds a little too structured, but I would say that intimacy oftentimes, requires a level of vulnerability. And it's not always easy to tap into that space, especially when you're the one who everyone depends on getting shit done. Like everyone comes to with all the questions, right? But there's a space when you allow yourself to feel desire for whatever that thing that you might be desirous, or person or situation you might be desirous of, that it opens up a space of intimacy. The other thing that I tend to hear a lot is like, why do I feel bored in rooms that I used to kill to be in? Like I hear that a lot. I worked so hard, Sharita, to get to this place, to be at this position, to have these people, and they're all here, and I'm in the room and I'm leading the meeting, and they're looking at me, and I'm just bored as fuck. Like I'm not feeling it. It's not exciting. Everything I ever worked for now bores me. And the thing that I would say is, a lot of times when I'm working with these men, they're in such a space of like mentaling, right? Of doing, that they're not in that space of being. And when you're tapping into desire and you're allowing yourself to feel those things, and I use the word allow very intentionally, because for a majority of people that I tend to work with, that I run into, maybe not everybody, but a lot of the people that I tend to work with, these men, they're not allowing themselves, because structure has been their discipline for so long, right? And that discipline has kind of sucked the life out of them. So when they allow themselves into a space of desire, what happens is it creates a new leading edge, as Abraham Hicks would say, like you're on the leading edge. It creates a new leading edge. And what it does is it actually stimulates the appetite. It's kind of like walking into your home, and maybe like your wife or your loved one or your chef or whoever, there's a delicious meal on the stove. and you weren't thinking about food, but the instant you walked in and you smelled it, like your tummy is like, bitch, I'm hungry. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think I better go eat something. Like, it stimulates, it whets your appetite. Or there might be something, I've jokingly said this for years, but like women, we tend to be more auditory, more verbal. And men, y'all, in general, stereotypically, not every man, not every woman, but men, y'all often tend to be very visual. And so sometimes you may see something visually at home, in a magazine, on the internet, on TV, and it whets your appetite, right? So allowing ourselves to feel desire doesn't have to be dangerous. It doesn't have to take you out of your structure, because at this point in your life and in your game, and I'm talking to the grown folks here, you have a certain level of structure and self-control and knowing and understanding that you can allow yourself to feel a space of desire without going buck wild, right? Without putting yourself, your reputation, your marriage in in jeopardy, like not risking anything. And so what's kind of cool about that is, I will be the first to admit, like when you whet that appetite, there becomes this delicious like thrill of the chase. And I am a fan of the thrill of the chase. And that comes in all forms. It's not just like people. For me, a lot of times it's within my business. I mean, that's just me. There's this space of like, I want to get to this new point, or I want to hit a new revenue marker in my business, or I want to land this particular client. And, they might seem in that moment like out of reach, or they're getting closer. There's a thrill in the chase where sometimes once then we get it and we're like, okay, I got it. Now what? And especially, I'm going to say, for those of us, I don't know about you, but I've always gotten what I've wanted in life in one way, shape, or form or another. One way, shape, form, or another. That's what I'm trying to say. I've always gotten what I've wanted in life. And so there becomes this space of like, where it can start to create a cycle of boredom and a cycle sometimes of destruction if you're not careful. Been there. But what I will say is, like, when in our space of maturity, when you can allow yourself to feel desire, to whet that appetite, you can begin to get into the deeper levels of what the desire actually is. Because a lot of times what it is we start chasing that surface level thing, and that surface level thing never satisfies. It's kind of like drinking mama's milk when you're at the point of needing steak and potatoes, right? And when you can start to get below the surface of that desire and understand what's truly driving it, then you get into the meat and potatoes of it. And that's where, again, it really, really, really becomes delicious. So what am I trying to say? Desire. You want some of that. Oh, I used to see this a lot years and years and years ago. I don't want to age myself too much. Good Lord, let me not say it like that. A few years ago, in my 20s, in my early 20s, I used to be a cocktail waitress. And without fail, there were always 2 or 3 gentlemen every day, Monday through Friday, who would be in the bar, sitting at the bar, usually from about 4:30 to 7 o'clock, like knocking a few back. They weren't necessarily talking with anybody. They weren't flirting. They weren't doing anything in particular, but just taking the edge off. And there becomes this space of like needing to take the edge off before going home. And the thing that I would say is, a lot of times, because there was a level of, yes, I mean, realistically, you had a hard day at work, right? You got to take the edge off. You don't want to go home being an asshole. But instead of going to, let's say, the gym, or going for a walk, or even allowing your family to be your de-stressor. When I say you, I don't mean you, because I got to clarify, because inevitably somebody's going to be like, I don't do that. Okay, I'm not talking to you. Relax. But there is a space where when you can start to tap in with desire, one of the things that it does is it starts to provide direction. Right. So there isn't necessarily this space of taking the edge off, because the edge isn't there. Right. So it doesn't need to be taken off. You get to relax into the desire. And the thing about desire that I think a lot of times when I'm speaking with people that they tend to miss is that desire it's not a distraction. Right. Especially for for those of you who are very accustomed to being so in control all the time, that allowing yourself to feel desire, it can feel like distraction. And desire is not a distraction. What it is it's a direction. Like you've matured. Like we talked about in the last example, like there have been rooms you've been dying to get into, and now you're in them and you're bored and you're like, okay, what the fuck? When you have that space of desire, it moves you into it gives you direction. Now again, recognizing that desire, like anything else, has its surface level. Once we get below the surface and you clear out and truly understand what it is that you're desirous of, that you want, that maybe even you're passionate about, it starts to give you direction and you can move within a specific direction or a specific space. I had a client that I was working with recently, and one of the things that we started talking about when we started clearing away the noise was there was this underlying current of desire, but he kept shoving it away because it was like, no, I live here, I do this, I'm focused on this, and this is everything that I've known over the last 30 years. And it's like, hey, but you're not the same guy you were in your 30s, now in your 50s, right? You're not the things that excited you then don't excite you now. And so when we got into the undercurrent of the desire, there was a space that he was wanting to kind of operate within. And one of the things that, just a little side note, that was delicious about this was moving into legacy creation. It wasn't the legacy of like, this is what my will looks like and I'm leaving my kids this. It wasn't even a public, this is my mark on the world and my bench will forever be in this park type of situation. I'm using that like, facetiously, but you get the point. But it was this legacy of, I actually have a desire to impact these types of people. And instead of burning it all down, we fed into that desire. What does that impact look like? How does it feel like? And then we were able to create ways for him to start to incorporate that into what he was currently doing so that he could still impact those people without destroying the structure that was already working. So sometimes just those little things of allowing yourself to feel desire, that alone takes the edge off. And what it did do was it sparked more life. It was one of those things where he came back and was like, hey, my wife said thank you. And I was like, for what? And he was like, because she said I'm different. Like that to me is as a wife, that's a really big deal. So I understand that space and I appreciate it. But sometimes that desire, it is what takes the edge off. It is what brings, again, like I talked about earlier, brings that connection back to family, back to self. It's like, I think this phrase is so cheesy, but it's so fitting. It's like coming home to self, right? But a lot of times it's the self that you didn't even know that existed. Okay, what else do I have in my notes? Why do I keep thinking about walking away from everything I have built? I don't know if you guys know this. For anybody who's followed me for any length of time, back during the pandemic, I was so big on I posted about it all the time on Facebook in particular, and I was like, I'm so over coaching. I'm so fucking bored. Like I'm thinking about just walking away, and I didn't know what else to do though. Like I've been doing this for so long. What do I do? What do I do? And that was part of the reason how I ended up in the Bahamas for 8 months. But the thing that I found is when you move into that space of desire, it brings satisfaction. It brings a level of soulfulness into your life, into your work, into the things that you're doing. It brings a deep level of fulfillment where you recognize I don't have to burn it all down. Like there's some space for evolution in there, right? I think I talked about this a little bit in my last video where I was like, I actually did burn it all down. And that was not the thing to do. I really just, in hindsight and, with a little bit more clarity and maturity, I really just needed a transition. But it's not like you have to burn it all down. And I do want to say that I appreciate more than I can say that feeling of wanting to burn it all down. But it's not necessarily that you burn it all down as much as you have to tap deeper into those undercurrents. And once you tap into those undercurrents, you get clear about what that desire is. You can move deeper into the passionate side of your essence. And I know so many men that have worked with, they're like, I'm not passionate, Sharita. Like I'm straightforward. Like being passionate doesn't mean that you're not straightforward, right? It doesn't mean that you're not analytical. Like to some degree or another, we all have a deeply passionate side. And when you move into the undercurrents of passion, that's where you really get into the meat and potatoes of purpose. But it starts with understanding, recognizing, acknowledging that you have a desire, allowing yourself to want what you really want. And then it layers from there. And what a lot of times what I find is in myself, even right now in this moment, this week, there's a level of evolution where we've done the thing, right? We've done all the things, we've conquered, we're doing well. Like, now what? I'm bored with it. I'm over it. Like when really all we need to do is just tap deeper in. Like I caution you on chasing the surface level desire because that can get messy. And I can tell you that from personal experience. It can get real messy. But what I will say is when you take the time to kind of step back and to lean into that icky uncomfortableness, there's a lot of beautiful clarity in there. There's a lot of amazing direction. And it's not that you have to stop doing what you're doing. It's not that you have to burn it down. It's that you get to evolve it, or you get to bring in new aspects of it. And it moves into from a space of doing to a space of flowing, because so often many of our days are set up with like, I got to do this and then I do this and then I do this. And it's like a check mark, right? Or we're being ruled by our calendars and, you know, God bless you, time block people. I love that for you. I have tried it and it does not work for me, but God bless you, time block people. And those of you who stick to a rigid schedule, there is wonderful things that come out of discipline, but within that discipline, there is a beautiful space for flow, and for that desire to flow and to lean into it. And I really, really, really encourage you to take a moment to explore it. Okay. And I had one more note for today. What is one other thing? Hold on, let me read my notes. Because I made a list of like, what are some of the most common phrases I hear? Oh, if I have everything, why do I still feel bored, empty, hollow? Usually some numb, even sometimes some version of that. And the thing of it is a lot of times, and I catch myself doing this. Again, I've got one foot deeply rooted in the logical, analytical side, but I also have another foot rooted in the abstract, conceptual, free flowing, even spiritual woo woo side. You know, many, many years of my coaching business was in that spiritual woo woo side, if you can't tell. But the thing of it is I find where we get so caught up in the doingness of the strategy, and me included. Like, I love strategy. I love when things are like clockwork, and I'm that analytical type. Don't tell me 2 + 2 = 4. Where did you get this to? Where did you get that to? And I need you to show you work. And how come we didn't do 3 and 1 or 1 and 3? How come these 2s aren't reversed? Why isn't it 0 and 4 and 4 and 0, or whatever combination you can come up with, right? Like, I have questions I need to know. Like, I'm very analytical and I like when things work like clockwork. But I will say, even in my own life right now, my things are working like clockwork. I've built a business. I've built my own little unique brand in my own little corner pocket of the world. And things are lovely, but I'm bored as fuck with it. And so I'm having to take a step back, lean into that boredom to understand, what am I being drawn into? What is it that I really want that I haven't been allowing myself to want? What's the thought behind the thought, and the thought behind that thought, and the feeling behind that, right? And so the beautiful thing about tapping into desire is it really does bring you back into your body. Because like I said, there's a thought, and there's a thought behind the thought, and a thought behind that. But 9 times out of 10, 9.99999 times out of 10, there's a feeling behind that. And when you start getting into that feeling, that's when we start tapping back into like that gut knowing, that gut instinct, that not just knowing of, I got to hit these numbers because if I do X amount, then I get these results, which lead to that end goal, you know, rinse, wash, rinse, repeat. And then what's the word I'm looking for? And then scale, right? There's that aspect of it, but then there's the feelingness of it where, you know, like I mentioned in my last video, I sat down to record a ton of content, and it literally felt icky. Like somewhere right in here, I was like, it wasn't hitting. It wasn't hitting, and I was like, I gotta approach these videos in a different way. And so that's why I'm taking this more free flowing, like less scripted, like you're getting real raw Sharita, right, in the moment, without putting a ton of thought into it. And it's not about not putting a lot of thought into something or being thoughtless. It's about, I know for me, my deepest level of authenticity and my magnetism in the work that I do all comes out of that free flow, which, by the way, is why I do my intensives the way that I do, because it allows me to tap into that intuitive, free flowing knowing, right? It's not just the feeling, but it's that inner knowing. Like there are times where we're like, I have a feeling this might work out, or we say this all the time, something told me to grab an umbrella today, right? But then we logicked ourselves out of it. We checked Google weather and we're like, nope, it's supposed to be sunny all day. And then all of a sudden we're like, shit, why the fuck didn't I grab that umbrella? Because something told me. How many times has something told you? It's this inner knowing. And when we learn to get back into our bodies, it allows us to quiet the mind a little bit. It's not to dismiss the mind, because the mind is a beautiful place. I love strategy. But it allows us to get into that knowing, that intuitive knowing, that gut instinct. Especially when I talk to my alphas, I talk a lot about that gut instinct, that just knowing that this is the space for me, right? And it doesn't matter what logic says, you know that 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 that is the space for you. And so a lot of times for a lot of the men I work with, that's coming back into your body. You've been so trapped in your mind in a beautiful way, because no one can do what you do the way that you do it, right? Other people may do it, but they don't do it the way that you do it. But now you can come back into your body. And when you come back into your body, you can do it with your full self. Not only, like I said, the doingness of it, but the beingness of it. So that one more thing, just a thought, when we're talking about moving into the body and we're following that undercurrent of desire, it creates a level of satisfaction that, how do I want to word this? It doesn't need an audience. Does that make sense? Like that level of satisfaction doesn't need an audience. When we're operating from here, let's be honest, like I'll be the first to admit, it feels good to get the recognition. It feels good for somebody to acknowledge the fact that you know what the fuck you're doing, or that you're the boss hog at this, that you are amazing at your job and you always have the right answers. But there is a level of deep, desirous, intuitive knowing and fulfillment and satisfaction that doesn't need the applause. Like, you ever did something on the background that nobody else saw you do, and you didn't even like, it was so good, it was so juicy, it was so delicious, and you felt so accomplished that you didn't even want to necessarily share with anybody that you did it or that you accomplished the thing, because it's almost like their opinions or them knowing would taint it or dilute it, right? Tapping back into desire and allowing yourself to move and to understand the undercurrents of that desire and what it is, those are the things that like move you into that deep level of gratification and satisfaction, where that fulfillment of the thing or the job, the task, the whatever it is, like it doesn't require applause from anybody. Okay. Ooh, girl, let me slow it down. So I would say this. And by the way, I do have something coming up next month. Shameless plug, where I am going to I'm gonna open up a container or a space to be able to tap into that desire. And as of right now, it may change, because again, I'm refining my message and my coaching containers. But as of right now, I believe that the name I've given that is the Desire Diagnostic. And really what it's all about is tapping into desire, understanding, number one, what the desire is, like what's that surface level, and then going deep and understanding the deeper layers. What's the thought behind the thought, and the thought behind that thought, and the feeling behind the thought, right? And the feeling behind the feeling, like to really go down. And it is a 24-hour container. Like I love intensives. Like I am not built to coach you over the next 6 months. I am built to do an entire 24 hours with you and I'll have more on that coming up in the upcoming weeks. But to take that 24 hours and then support you over the next 6 months. But you being who you are, you don't need 6 months to figure it out. You just need an intensive place to come in, to get real, to get raw, to get honest, not just with me, not so much with me, but with yourself. And then one of the things that I, of course, I will always help my alphas do is to find ways to layer that knowing, that understanding, that deep current into their current business structures. And also, it's important to know how to communicate that to your friends and family, right? So that way they don't think you have flown off the handle. But with that in mind, because trust me, I could be here all day talking about it, all day talking about it. I think what we're going to do is go ahead and wrap up. In doing so, thank you for joining me. I am beginning to shift these little, we'll call them happy hour chats, into a podcast format. So once I do have that up and loaded, I will let you guys know where you can find that if you miss one. But in the meantime, let's just plan on meeting back for happy hour. I don't know what date yet, but on LinkedIn primarily, and also on my Facebook personal page. If you really want to see the raw nitty gritty Sharita, like the unfiltered as fuck Sharita, my personal Facebook page is definitely the place to do that. But what I will do is I will make announcements where that is and when the next happy hour session will be, and we will make it happen from there. But really, I implore you to really start thinking about your desires. What is it that you want? And it's not only what you want, what are you not allowing yourself to want? And why? Like, what's the real reason why? And when you understand there, I'm sorry, I want to pick and choose my words carefully. Not so much to filter myself, but to ensure that I'm not sending someone on a wild goose chase that will end up in destruction. But what I will say is when you allow yourself to want what you want, or to at least acknowledge what you really want, then you get to move into a space of what is it? What is it? What is it really? What's the thought behind the thought? Like, what's the feeling behind it? And what's really cool is a lot of times the thing that we have been denying ourselves from even acknowledging that we want, we did it out of that denial came out of a space of crafting, creating, holding safety. But when we recognize what it truly is and the deeper currents, the undercurrents of it, and where it originates, and where it's guiding us, that concern of not being safe, not being recognized, not being accepted, it begins to all of that begins to dissolve, and you realize, wait a minute, this is actually a deeper layer of who I truly am, at my authenticity. And I don't have to sacrifice the desire for professionalism, nor do I have to sacrifice professionalism for the desire. There is plenty of place for both, especially we are in 2025. We are halfway through this year. So we are on our way to 2026. This is the year. This is the time where we can really genuinely do what we want. Of course, within guidelines, right? Authenticity, integrity, and sustainability. It's got to also be not only true to you, but it's got to be in the highest integrity, and it's got to be something sustainable, right? All right. And I would definitely also say, and within balance, remembering that balance doesn't always mean equal. All right, my friends, I think we are going to go ahead and wrap up for today. As soon as I have more details on a consistent schedule, because right now I'm in a refinement process of my outward presentation and the alignment within how I want to present myself and or be received and perceived. So as I clarify that, then I will have more details for you. But in the meantime, I think we're going to keep rocking with some of these free flowing happy hour videos, and we're going to make some shit happen. All right. I love you lots. Here's to an amazing evening, day, whatever time you're watching this, weekend, week ahead. And I will see you soon. But more than anything, allow yourself to feel the desire. Talk soon. Take care. Bye.